All right, so our group has been talking about this a little bit. I've kind of been championing this concept. But I wanted to really do a 5-minute video, something pretty quick, pretty simple, on a couple things. So I'll put some links out there if you guys are interested, if you want to do your own reading on this. But so it kind of ties into this corporate law revolution of the late 70s and really the 80s is when kind of it popped off, for lack of a better term. What that means is the corporate law revolution was really this idea, right? I'm not going to get into the laws because that's really probably unnecessary, but it was driven by this idea of shareholder primacy, which in effect means that for the profit of the shareholders is paramount. There's nothing else that matters, and all other things, it's an absolutist view of things. One thing I want to say too is I think, and that there's not a direct corollary, but I imagine that the zeitgeist of America was influenced by Skinner and this idea of behaviorism, meaning the idea that no one does anything without a direct and obvious value to them. So just a few things that kind of concepts that really wanted to drive home on the differences here and why this is the shareholder primacy and behaviorism as a whole were just so awful. And you can see it today with vulture capitalism. You can see it with these companies that do everything for profits, right? Pharmaceutical companies that drive up their prices, killing people, drive up insulin prices, killing people, that sort of thing, right? We know it's a problem. And if you want to debate that, I don't think that there is a debate that it's not a problem. And what I mean is that we have these absolutist ideals, right? Behaviorism, shareholder primacy, that work in effect against all other moral and human aspects of life, of reality, right? So behaviorism, you should look into Punished by Rewards by Alfie Kohn. He talks about how that is actually against our nature. And again, dig into it. But behaviorism, the idea that we don't do anything without a value, that's kind of been embedded in our cultural concept of human interaction for the last nearly century, is toxic and destructive. And I firmly agree with that. And I think the reality is very clear that the majority of people are moral, human, empathetic, and they do see value in doing things for others when it doesn't necessarily come with a true value, like direct reward. And so that's important to note, because that's kind of the thing that I think is driving the shareholder primacy concept, where these companies, because their shareholders are effectively the owners who then elect the boards, are the only ones that should matter, right? This idea that would to all, an exclusion of all else, right? Prior to the 80s, prior to Milton Friedman and the Chicago schools idea of shareholder primacy, the general consensus was that that companies should operate in the interest of the people, right? And that's the people working for them, the people around them, the people that are everything, right? And this ties into this concept called the infinite game by Simon Sinek, right? He talks about this idea that we should look towards long term, right? That we should be building nation building. We should be, these corporations should be looking at lasting for 50 plus years, not extracting as much value immediately as possible. This idea that a company, if it's legal to pollute, should pollute the water just because it can save them money, right? Which is, we know is incorrect, but in an absolutist terms, right, that whole shareholder primacy sense, they should, and it's generally not questioned why these companies do that. And I think that that's where the problems stem from, right? The problem that that these companies have to be behaviorists, and the people that they're supporting with that behaviorism, those rewards, is the stockholders. So kind of trying to wrap that all up, and the laws that I think that are probably the most relevant to discuss that it came about from that, and because some of the shifts in society that are you're going to run into when changing these things is the so the single largest employer in the country is the federal government, and their primary means prior to 1985 was for pensions or retirement funds was an actual pension paid out by the government. In 1985, they shifted over to a TSP system, which basically means that you put your money into it. It's almost like an IRA, right? TSP is probably one of the best IRAs you can possibly invest into. I'm not trying to sell them, but that's what happened, right? And so, but one thing to understand about that is that the TSP is trillions of dollars, right? I'm not joking. And so, this trillions of dollars into the markets has buoyed the markets substantially. And additionally, any laws or any legal changes, right, like removing the shareholder primacy, because actually the shareholders, in a lot of these cases, the largest shareholder or one of the larger shareholders happens to be via these IRA/TSPs, meaning the people, right? The problem is the people aren't really voting. And so, because it's all under the auspices of the TSP/IRA, right? And so, one other element of that is because you're talking trillions of dollars, right? If, let's say, TSP owns 3% of a company, any company, right? And they want to sell 3%, to move on, and they want to remove their position, it's going to crater that stock, right? And the problem is because they're talking 3 or more % of a company trying to be sold. Well, while they're trying to sell it, everyone else is going to clear out. So let's say 3% of Tesla is $100 billion, right? They're trying to sell $100 billion worth of Tesla. I don't actually know what Tesla's worth. This is just a hypothetical, but the point is to exemplify the impact of these TSPs, and also the fact that while they're trying to sell, everyone else is selling at a higher value, right? Everyone, let's say someone had, someone has $10 billion in stock in Tesla, right? They sell that $10 billion of stock a lot faster than the TSP can sell $100 billion, which basically means that the person that's going to take the largest losses when they're trying to clear out of these failing businesses, these failing stocks, is going to be the TSP. And so, which basically means the people, right? The largest employer in the country, the TSP, is that utilizes the TSP for its retirees, life savings or retirees like benefits, right? Is effectively taking the brunt of the damage. So what that means is that any effects against the stock market are you have to incur pain, right? So Elon Musk talking about this is going to be a painful few years is actually correct, because if we want to make any of these changes, it's going to be painful. Like, we're going to hit the stock market hard if we want to change the shareholder primacy, right, concept, right? If we want to get off of Milton Friedman and Chicago school style economics, if we want to get back to this infinite game concept, it's going to hurt the majority of Americans, and it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty. The problem is that if we don't change the shareholder primacy concept, or if we don't at least marginally shift these concepts, right? If we don't shift the law just even a little bit, the impacts are going to continue to get worse, right? These companies that have basically buying elections, you have these companies that are destroying our country, destroying via like misinformation, Citizens United, all of these outcomes from that shareholder primacy kind of concept that have driven policy and money. So it's a huge lift. Because what you have to talk about is you have to talk about, what, since 1950s, you had Skinner kind of pushing the behaviorism concept, which then leads to the, shareholder primacy kind of thing, and this divorce from the infinite game, right? I can talk about all that a lot more, but I really want to just point out the disparity and really the problem. The core problems, right, is that approach, that thinking, and then the things you're going to have to overcome going forward, because it's going to hurt. So, if you have any questions, hit me up.